UFC Saudi Arabia is this weekend. It's a really stacked card. I mean, knowing Uncle Dana, he wants that oil money, all right? Coincidentally, Saudi and Abu Dhabi, they're getting another great card, and this is better than UFC 312. So 312 is the weakest card of the year, and then meanwhile, we got bangers like this that are just coming out left and right. So it is what it is. It's a great card. Can't complain too much. A couple of the prelims are kind of a bit of, jabroni versus jabroni, as we're about to get into. But for the most part, especially the main card, it's really solid. And we're going to get into it. Just starting off with the fight of all fights, baby. The fight of the goddamn century. Hamdy Abdulwahab's back, baby. And he's taking on Jamal Pogues. Dude, I don't got dick to really say about this fight, man. My pick is going to be Jamal Pogues. Hamdy Abdulwahab, I'm just going to call him Hamdy, bro. Which, obviously, I guess sound retarded. But Hamdy, man, came into the UFC, got a solid debut, but this was years and years ago. I'm talking like 2022-ish, but popped for PEDs. We haven't really seen him since. From what I've gathered, he hasn't even really fought on the regional scene or anything like that. I don't really know much about this guy, but I do know that he popped a few years ago. And now he's back, and he's taking on Jamal Pogues, who, kind of a decision merchant, which is pretty concerning for heavyweight standards, but it is what it is. He's not even that bad of a talent. I'm going to be going with Pogues in this one because I feel like, like I said, he's a decision merchant. He doesn't really do anything too great, but he's got solid striking, and I feel like wrestling is something he's going to implement in this one. We've seen it in the past for a few of his fights. I think that's what he's going to do against Big Hamdy over here. So, yeah, I don't got dick to say about this fight, bro. I'm going with Pogues. Moving on, up next to Bogdan Grad, going to be taking on Lucas Alexandr. My pick is going to be going with Bogdan Grad on this one. For his initial appearance on the Contender Series in 2023, had a brutalish kind of knockout, but he bounced back, had a nice, kind of return in the Contender Series last year for the most recent season, and he put on a fucking scrap, and he put on a war. Arguably, the fight could have went to the other guy, but it is what it is. It was a good performance, and Dana gave him a contract for it. So, Bogdan Grad, man, record of 14-2, seems like a solid talent, but again, hasn't really had an official UFC debut yet, so there's kind of a lot of question marks with it, but he seems solid, man. Pretty well-rounded from what we could tell, kind of can hold his own on the feet, but can kind of mix it up as well with the ground as well. But he's taking on Lucas Alexandr, who is a bit of a jobber. He had a really good win over Steven Peterson, but other than that, I mean, lost his debut to Joe Anderson Brito, who is a great talent, nothing wrong with that. But then he lost, I believe, sometime in like the fall or winter-ish, like last year, or not even last year, like 2023, and had kind of a brutal first-round knockout. So he's going to want to get back in the win column. He's going to want to need some momentum, but I just can't really see him getting it done on this one. Bogdan Grad seems like a guy who has a promising potential, so I'm just going to be going with him on this one. Lucas Alexandr doesn't, he had a good win over Steven Peterson, but other than that, really doesn't do anything too great or too well, so I feel like this is kind of just going to go to Grad on this one. Moving on up next to Ziam versus Mike Davis. Now, this is some good matchmaking, bro, and I feel like the fact that the odds are so close in this one, I think that goes to show how close of a fight this really is. Well, no shit, but I'm going to be going with... This is really hard to predict here. I could see this fight totally going either way, and I know that he's a slight underdog, but I'm going to be going with Ziam. Don't get me wrong, Mike Davis has all the tools in the world to be able to get this one done, and Ziam is a guy who, good prospect for the lightweight division. I feel like he definitely deserves somebody ranked if he gets a win over Mike Davis, because Davis is solid in his own right, and again, it's going to be a close fight. Davis is going to present a lot of problems for him, but Ziam has a good few fight win streak going, a very patient, technical striker, wasn't really known for getting crazy big finishes, but he's coming off an explosive fucking knockout over Matt Frevola, who, granted, Frevola's not the craziest competition we've ever seen in the world, but it was a really good win. It definitely was a step up in Ziam 4 competition, and he passed that test very well. Just a brutal fucking knee, and I feel like kind of put himself on the map with that one, especially kind of opening up the France card. So Ziam gaining momentum bit by bit, and if he's able to get past Davis, give him somebody in the rankings next. And I like what I see from Ziam. Again, patient technical striker. He knows how to maintain the distance well, knows how to pace it well, but there are clear holes in his game that do concern me, especially when facing Davis, because Ziam, he doesn't have that great at grappling. Solid down there, don't get me wrong, but I think that a lot of guys at lightweight could present problems for him down there. I could see him getting out grappled, out wrestled, just kind of out drowned down there against certain guys. And on top of that, like I said earlier, Ziam, more of like a patient kind of technical striker. Yeah, he's coming off a really good knockout over Matt Frevola, but before that, we were kind of getting decision after decision after decision. Ziam doesn't have a lot of pop behind his shots. He isn't the most powerful fucking striker we've ever seen. What he does well. But the things that concern me, they concern me against Davis, because Davis is solidly well-rounded. He's not that active of a fighter, a little bit older than Ziam on this one, 32 years old, but that's still right in the middle of your fucking prime. So again, even though Davis is a pretty inactive fighter, I think he has the tools to get this one done. I mean, I'd say he's a lot more well-rounded kind of overall. I think he has more pop and power behind his shots, and like I said about the well-rounded aspect of things, Davis just seems so much more comfortable about not only just the fight being on the ground, but taking the fight to the ground. I could see him trying to mix it up well against Ziam, and honestly, that's going to be his path to victory. If he's able to kind of mix it up, keep him guessing, efficiently hold his own on the feet, put on the volume and get the better of the exchanges, and even getting into the pocket and kind of just rocking Ziam. Because again, the power advantage, I feel like I would give the edge to Mike Davis. But if he's able to go hold his own on the feet, like I said, and then able what he does get done on the ground, if he's able to do it efficiently, either rack up some good control time or really just overwhelm Ziam down there, or even get a submission, I could see that as well, man. Davis is solid. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter here, but I just think Ziam is riding a bit more momentum. He's a bit more of an active fighter. I think that he's going to be able to get his own, or get the better of the striking exchanges on the feet, but it's not like he has this aura of unbeatability to him. You know what I mean? Like, I could see kind of somebody coming along, maybe even outside the rankings like Davis, and getting a win over him. If Ziam's able to go and hold his own on the ground, though, and keep this fight on the feet and kind of just like dictate where it goes, dictate the pace, pick and choose the right shots. He's long, rangy, maintains the distance well. If he's able to go and do all that, and again, stuff Davis's takedowns well, keep the fight on the feet, I feel like Ziam's going to get this one done. And yeah, I think Mike Davis has all the tools to give Ziam problems, and he's solid in his own right, man. You know what I mean? But there's just nothing great or spectacular here. Overall, though, I'm going to be going with Ziam. Moving on up next to Terrance McKinney, the one-round wonder, taking on Damir Hadzovic. So I'm going to be going with Terrance McKinney on this one. Dude, Terrance McKinney fights end with either he gets an amazing round 1 knockout or the other guy does the fucking same thing to him. Because do you guys remember when people were talking about Terrance McKinney like he was going to be the next guy to beat John Jones, and all of a sudden now he's a win 1, lose 2 kind of guy? It's unfortunate, man, because McKinney, he's young, he is somewhat still like a promising talent, but like, you know, he's very beatable, and it is concerning. And his chin, it's not good, man. He's just, again, like I said, he just suffers these brutal knockouts if he's not the one delivering them. So again, though, I'm going to be going with Terrance McKinney taking the win here. Kind of semi-well-rounded here, but I feel like McKinney doesn't do anything too great, kind of just overall. And again, the chin's very concerning. But Damir Hadzovic, dude, the UFC must have been looking all over the fucking garbage bin for this, just to give McKinney some kind of win here, just something to give him back into the win column, because I think the UFC just kind of wanted to give him a little bit of a layup here. But yeah, Hadzovic, man, 14-7 record. Well, I mean, which again isn't great, but McKinney's like 15-7, so we're kind of not working with much here. McKinney's a massive favorite, and I feel like that's for a good reason, because Hadzovic, he's not too big of a finisher, and I feel like if you're going to beat McKinney, you need to kind of have that raw power. You kind of, not even the biggest power in the world, but you got to have something, a little pop behind the shots. Hadzovic is a guy who doesn't really do anything too great. I feel like, again, the UFC's kind of just handing him to McKinney on this one, feeding him to the wolves. And if Hadzovic wins this one, McKinney, bro, we're seeing this guy. We're seeing this guy in the PFL, the GFL, fucking, well, Bellator's dead. We're going to see him in something after this. McKinney needs a win really bad. He should get it. Like, this is a clearly, like, favorable matchup to him. Again, if you want to take out McKinney, you got to have some pop behind your shots, and Hadzovic is kind of lacking in that department. He's like a minus 500 or 600 favorite by the time I'm recording this for McKinney, so I feel like seems like a pretty solid win here. And again, if he loses, it's over, bro. It's fucked, and you just can't pick McKinney again after that. So moving on up next to the feature prelim we have here, the meal deal, baby. Shamil Gaziev, he's back. He's a fucking massive favorite for this one as well. He's going to be taking on Thomas Peterson for the feature prelim. My prediction, Shamil Gaziev, how he gets it done, probably just fucking eats him up like Kirby, absorbs the fucking powers, you know, becomes a little more well-rounded by the day, you know, eats this guy, and all of a sudden the meal deal is going to become the fucking champ of the world. In all honesty though, man, I see Gaziev taking this one the distance. Rozenstruik fucked him the hell up pretty damn bad, and I feel like Gaziev was a guy who, at least among the community, you know, was kind of picking up some hype. Nice first couple finishes in the UFC. They throw him into like an Apex main event spot, which is what they do very well, especially with heavyweights. And Gaziev, I just think, not ready, brother. Good opponent, good strikes, good eat. It was a good win for Rozenstruik, but he just absolutely dominated Gaziev in there. But Gaziev getting a win over Mays in his last performance, not the craziest thing we've seen in the world. Wasn't absolutely blowing him up in there. Wasn't absolutely blowing him out of the water. But it put Gaziev back in the win column. So right now, he's 2-1 in the UFC. I think Gaziev is going to want to go into this fight. Hopefully it's not a decision, like especially if he's going to be in that feature prelim spot. I mean, I think Gaziev's well known kind of amongst like the more hardcore side of things for the MMA community, but like he's got to put himself on the map, okay? Dude's still not in the rankings, which at heavyweight standards is pretty wild, and he's going to be looking to go out there and look for a win. Thomas Peterson though, man, people forget, man. But Thomas Peterson, I can actually see him winning this one, you know, because I know Gaziev's a huge favorite here, but it's not like he's the craziest talent in the world we've ever fucking seen. It's not like I'd be super fucking surprised here. Both these guys just look like the reason why the fucking drive-throughs that extra 30 minutes, bro. But young dude coming up, 2-1 as well in the, or 1-1 in the UFC, coming off a win over Muhammad Usman. 100% takedown defense in the UFC, pretty solid. And along with, I mean, he's not a type of guy who, he's not the hardest hitting 255 pounder you ever seen. But the thing is, I just think that Gaziev is just, it's wild if you just compared it looking at Muhammad Usman against Shamil Gaziev. But I think Gaziev is just more of an elite talent. Muhammad Usman is just, he's a lot more beatable, man. Nothing crazy, kind of relies a bit too much on the last name. And yeah, Peterson looked good in there, you know, was able to mix it up well, you know, was outpiecing him on the feet, but he was also able to get a couple takedowns in. So it was a good win for him. He can hold his own on the feet and the ground enough to where I think that's why I can't really see Shamil Gaziev getting a finish in this one, especially if he's trying to play it the bit more patient, tactical route, just trying to get a win. Maybe he'll save the eating for afterwards. But I could see Gaziev trying to mix it up well in this one. I think he's going to want to maybe take it to the ground a couple times. And I think it might be in his best interest. Gaziev, I just feel like has the advantages here on the feet. I feel like he has the advantages on the ground. I think Gaziev needs to move forward in this one, put the pressure on him from the bat, you know, enough of the patient tactical route. All right, let's see Gaziev get a finish here. Let's see him get the fuck after it, try and get a spot back in the rankings. I think he's going to be able to take this one. I think that the odds, or I should say, I think that the odds makers, I'm going to be going on their side for this one. So I see Shamil Gaziev taking this one via some kind of decision. I just don't think Peterson is that crazy of a talent, and I think if you're going to beat Gaziev, it's going to be those guys that are around like that top 10, maybe even top 15 range. So moving on up next now to the main card, Muhammad Naimov is going to be taking on Kaan Ofli. So I'm going to be going with Muhammad Naimov on this one. Pretty relatively solid talent, you know, doesn't have like too crazy of anything that he does extremely well, but he's a promising young talent. Primarily is going to want to keep most of his fights on the feet, but we've seen him shoot takedowns. We've seen him very comfortable with taking the fight to the ground, and most of the time it works out well for him. And when it comes to his abilities on the feet, actually pretty solid striker, and the dude has power behind his shots. We've seen a couple kind of vicious knockouts in his UFC career, but hasn't had too much UFC exposure, not a lot of fights, only about like 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. So we're kind of getting a little bit more out of him with this one. Probably going to kind of put himself on the spot, especially if he wins, kind of opening up a main card of a big like Adesanya fight night, you know what I mean? Got subbed in his last performance, but other than that, he was looking good prior. But so I feel like this is going to be a kind of a good bounce back for him. But Kaan Ofli, I can maybe see him win this one, but there's just a lot of question marks with him because, you know, the only fight he had in the UFC obviously was the tough finale where he lost to Myron Santos. And I don't think there's anything wrong with losing to Myron Santos. He's a pretty young, promising talent who's a really fun, dynamic striker. A lot of people say very Anderson Silva-esque, because there's nothing wrong with losing to Santos. Seems like he's a promising young kid who's going to go really far. But for Ofli, he's going to need some better exposure in the UFC. He's really going to kind of be hungry for a win here. He needs it because as of right now, he's 0-1, and I really don't know too much about the dude. Feel like this seems like a pretty clear win for Naimov. Like, again, the little we've seen from Ofli on Tough or just in general, regional scene, whatever the fuck, dude. Just doesn't seem like too great a talent. And obviously, if he goes out there and wins, it's going to age pretty badly, but it is what it is. I'm going to be going with Muhammad Naimov on this one. I feel like all the advantages are kind of in his court for this one, and he's going to be looking to put on a big statement. So I'm going to be going with Naimov. Don't really know how it gets it done. Probably by knockout. That's probably what I'd go with. But I could also totally see a decision. But again, when you're opening up the main card, man, I feel like there's that extra pressure, especially when you're kind of two relatively unknown guys. You want to go make a statement. So yeah, I'm going to be going with Naimov by some kind of like maybe second or third round finish here. Moving on up next to Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira. I actually really like this matchup. Makes sense for both guys. I think that both guys can bring a lot of problems to each other. Said Nurmagomedov, obviously not related to Khabib or Umar or Usman, all those motherfuckers, but he's still got the little OF at the end of his name, brother. So very dangerous threat, especially if this one's going to the judges' scorecards. I feel like even if Oliveira's blowing him out the water, I could see a Nurmagomedov decision win. And I know that Oliveira is the underdog here, but I'm going to be going with Vinicius Oliveira taking this one. Now, Said Nurmagomedov, he's a hard guy to finish, especially on the ground, but on the feet as well. Like, it's not easy to just crack his lights or take him out of there. And Vinicius Oliveira, man, he's a hard-hitting motherfucker, though. Like, he's dynamic, he's explosive, he's good at putting the pressure on guys. Obviously not too much experience in the UFC yet, but the guy has a shit ton of fights. And also, he's the younger fighter coming into this, 29 years of age. He's a big bantamweight prospect who I feel like a lot of people are putting hype behind. Obviously had one of the most wild, brutal fucking knockouts we ever seen last year against Bernardo Sopaj. But I think Said Nurmagomedov is just, as you know, I think Sopaj is actually a pretty solid prospect. He's coming off a good win recently as well. I think that was the 311 card. So for Oliveira to go out there, and Sopaj was giving him problems, you know, especially on the ground. But Oliveira was able to find his rhythm in there, kind of like when the fight got halfway through. Like, I think Oliveira, look, he's going to want to keep most of his fights on the feet. He's primarily a striker, and he's a hard-hitting one at that, especially for bantamweight. The dude is built like a featherweight, but I think that he's able to hold his own on the ground enough when you're kind of facing kind of that outside the rankings level, but I feel like Saeed clearly is going to be wanting to take this one to the ground. He's a well-rounded fighter in his own right, but I feel like both these guys have a different way they're going to be attacking this fight. Like, Oliveira is going to want to stand and bang in this one, put forward the pressure, close the distance, make Saeed face him in the pocket, and then hopefully take his lights out. But again, Saeed Nurmagomedov has a good chin. And on the contrary, like I just said, Oliveira is going to want to stand and bang, but I feel like Nurmagomedov is going to want to mix it up. He's not just going to want to stand in front of a guy who's taller than him, has a slightly better reach, has more power. Well, I shouldn't even say have, slightly better reach. It's like half an inch, but still, Oliveira is a dangerous striker, and he did have a couple holes in his game from what we've seen in the grappling. And obviously, if that's Saeed Nurmagov's shit and butter, who the fuck says that? I don't even know what the hell I was trying to say, but like, oh, bread and butter. I said shit and butter. Obviously, that's Saeed's bread and butter, and he's gonna want to take this one to the ground, try and mix it up well. Saeed can hold his own on the feet, but he's not the hardest hitting motherfucker we've ever seen. Doesn't have too much pop behind his shots, and against a guy like Oliveira, who is gonna want to bring forward that pressure, get the momentum on his side, dictate where the fight goes, dictate the pace from the start. If he's able to efficiently do that and then look solid defensively on the ground, I think that's how he's gonna be able to take this one done, or get this one done. I see Oliveira winning a decision here, but again, that's risky at the Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi cards, man, when you got the little OF at the on the other guy's last name. And Saeed, not the craziest finisher in the world, so again, it does concern me if this does go to the scorecards. So like, even if Oliveira's winning, they might just give it to Saeed, but I think Oliveira might be the guy to take out Saeed on the feet. And I think that Oliveira, even if he's not going to be the guy to knock out Saeed Nurmagomedov for the first time in the UFC, I think that if he goes out there and dictates where the fight goes and doesn't hit Saeed, well, dictate where the fight goes and kind of just keep the fight standing, then I think that's how Oliveira is going to be taking this one. He's big for the division, long, rangy, he's young, he's a prospect riding a lot of hype, and Saeed Nurmagomedov, man, it's hard to beat him. Most of the time in the UFC, he's not losing, and especially, again, it concerns me that this is on home turf, but I think Oliveira is just one of the best bantamweight prospects that we're seeing again, but I think we just need a little more exposure in the UFC. We've seen a lot more out of Saeed in the UFC, so we kind of have a lot more to go off of. Oliveira, still kind of some question marks, but for Saeed Nurmagomedov, he's going to want to take this fight to the ground as much as he can, maintain the distance well. So overall, though, might be a risky pick. He's kind of an underdog that's kind of getting bigger and bigger by the day, but I'm going to be going with Oliveira here, either by, I'm going to say it, knockout or decision. Moving on up next to Sergei Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now, I'm going to be going with Rozenstruik. He's kind of a massive underdog going into this one, and you never really know with Sergei Pavlovich. And I say you never really know. As of late, it's kind of hard to, you know what I mean? Because had a great win streak going. He was like the boogeyman of the heavyweight division. You know, oh, this guy's going to be the 18th person in a row to beat John Jones, and this guy's going to be on top of heavyweight for a while, man. Pavlovich is a bad man in there. He's dangerous. And then obviously got knocked out pretty relatively quick by Aspinall, and then Volkov. This is a very key performance, especially for this fight. But Volkov went out there and just completely frustrated him in there, maintained the distance well, completely just frustrated Pavlovich. Pavlovich just couldn't get any of his big shots in, and even when they connected, couldn't really follow up with any good combinations because Volkov knew what I mean, obviously those guys trained before, and with Pavlovich being, you know, such a hard-hitting fighter, and I don't want to say one-dimensional, but it kind of is. Like, you know what he's trying to go in there and do. He's trying to take your head off in the first round, and if he can't do that, he's going to try and do it in the second. And if, God forbid, you make it to the third round, I mean, like, he has a very clear strategy, and his opponents know that. Pavlovich isn't the type of guy who is like a crazy Valium striker, and he isn't too well-rounded. He's going to want to keep it on the feet, clearly going to be looking to knock him out. And Volkov just went out there, and I don't want to say exposed him, but he had all the keys and knew what he was doing in there to be able to get the better of a guy like Pavlovich with his style. Again, maintain the distance, pick and chose his right shots, you know, didn't get rocked too much in there, didn't allow Pavlovich to dictate the pace or the pressure or anything like that. And when you're going against a guy like Rozenstruik now, okay, who is probably one of the most patient and technical strikers that we really have in heavyweight right now, Rozenstruik knows how to get the finishes. You know, we've seen some good knockouts from him in the past, but like, I'd say he's more so on the technicality side of things. And when you're going against Pavlovich, that concerns me for Pavlovich because Volkov was able to go in there and do something that I feel like Rozenstruik will be able to replicate, you know, because Rozenstruik is comfortable being patient there, and because, you know, he's been finished by some hard-hitting motherfuckers before, but, like, he's also not. He's gotten some wins that people are like, oh, holy shit, Rozenstruik actually took that one. I feel like if he's able to go, try and kind of drag this one out the distance, not get into dangerous waters with a guy like Pavlovich, avoid his big shots, Don't get too in the pocket with him. And Pavlovich, he's going to be kind of easy to figure out, especially if he gets out the first round. He's just kind of going to be, getting a lot more anxious in there, getting a lot more worried. The heartbeat going to go ba-bum, 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 picking up a little bit. I don't know why I just sounded autistic when I did that. But seriously, I could see Pavlovich, if this fight goes past the first round, and especially the second, I feel like it's just going to go, I'll word it like this. The longer the fight goes, clearly it's just going to favor Rozenstruik more and more because A, I feel like that's kind of more so his element, especially with an opponent like this, and B, Pavlovich, I feel like, especially the fact that he's on a 2-fight losing skid, probably is going to feel a lot of pressure in this to kind of get a big win, get a big knockout, and again, like I said, that's the style. He's kind of always looking for the knockout. I feel like Rozenstruik's going to be able to go in there and replicate something similar to Volkov and is going to be able to frustrate him in there, and then Pavlovich is going to be missing the big shots. Then he's just going to be getting a lot more gassed in there. Then he's just going to kind of be fucking swinging for the win. Pavlovich is very, very dangerous. There's a clear reason and a big reason why he's a big favorite going into this one, but I think that Rozenstruik is going to be able to pick and choose his shots, right, and avoid Pavlovich's massive fury that is going to unload on him. But it's going to be dangerous for him. Again, Rozenstruik has been finished before, and it's pretty much exclusively by the hardest hitting motherfuckers in heavyweight, and Pavlovich kind of is one of them, and he's going to be hungry to look for a finish, a spectacular knockout. He wants to put on a statement and maintain a spot in the top 5 because that's going to get, if Rozenstruik wins this one, we're talking about him being one away from a title shot, which is pretty wild. I'm actually happy for Biggie Boy in that one. But Pavlovich, a one-dimensional fighter who I feel like we're going to find out a lot about him with this whole losing skid he's on right now, because he's either going to bounce back and kind of maintain that position in the top, upper echelon of the rankings, or he's going to go and be on a 3-fight losing skid now, and he's just going to be all figured out. Because if Rozenstruik goes out there and pieces him up technically like Volkov did, that's just kind of going to become the thing with Pavlovich unless he's facing jabronis, which granted, it's heavyweight, there's quite a lot, but still. So overall, Pavlovich, super fucking dangerous. I can totally see a knockout win here. I feel like a lot of people are going to be adding Pavlovich to the parlays, but man, I just think Rozenstruik has the abilities to get it done. Rozenstruik's a guy who, he's riding a good win streak right now, he's riding momentum, wants to put his name on the map, and if he beats Pavlovich, he's going to cement himself in that top 3 or 4. And for Pavlovich, if he loses, it's going to be concerning. Definitely has the tools to knock out Biggie Boy again. It's been done before. It wouldn't be the craziest fucking thing in the world. He's a massive favorite for a reason, but I think Rozenstruik has all the tools to get it done. So moving on to the highly anticipated striking spectacle we got going on here between Shara, Magomedov, and MVP for the co-main event. Now, I'm going to be going with Shara Bullet on this one, but this is a competitive fight, okay? Honestly, you could argue this could be closer to a pick'em, but it looks like Shara Magomedov's kind of closing in on like a near minus 200 favorite, so kind of surprised at that, but it's going to be interesting to see if one of these two guys turns it, so you're a wrestler now. It's going to be interesting to see if Shara or MVP turns into a wrestler here, but I don't think either will, unless they're facing some kind of big adversity on the feet. Like if the other one is completely just piecing the other up or landing all the big shots or just completely putting the pressure on him and the other one has nothing for it or it's just not working out, I could see them trying to maybe take it to the ground, but for the most part, I think we're just going to kind of see a battle on the feet here. So I do want to say one kind of elephant in the room for this one is that A, MVP is going to be moving up to middleweight here, and B, he's getting closer to 40 than he actually is to Shara's age himself, you know what I mean? And it's surprising, the fact, like when you look at MVP's fights and when you look at his style and you look at how quick he is in there, you really wouldn't believe he's 37. Like, I will say that even though he's getting older, he does have the speed advantage for this one. And on top of that, I also think that MVP probably has a little bit more pop behind his shots, because I mean, when you look at Shara Magomedov's UFC career, when he came in, wasn't really the biggest finisher, you know? Like he ended up getting like a third round finish over Antonio Tricoli, the jabroni. And even then, like it was kind of like late into the fight, you know what I mean? I mean, obviously before the last performance against Petrosian, one of the best knockouts we saw all of last year, so that was incredible. But with Shara's style, it was kind of concerning. He didn't have more pop behind his shots. It was kind of a bit of a lack of power, but I feel like too, now that he's getting a bit more few fights in the UFC, we're kind of seeing the power a bit more on display, or maybe less of even power, more so just the precision and finding the right shots. But he had a fun fight against Mikhail Aleksejczyk. That was kind of a nice little back and forth, but ultimately Shara kind of clearly won that one. Other than that though, the finish over Tricoli and Petrosian, I feel like we kind of need to see a bit more for Shara to kind of prove that he has that power. I will say this though, Shara Magomedov striking, it's clean, man. It's good. The technique, the precision, finding the right timing of everything, it's all there. This guy's trying to show off the Daggy striking, brother. You know, a little different side of things, you know. And it's really refreshing to see a Daggy who's kind of just going out there and isn't some primarily wrestling-based style. And on top of that, like, Shara Magomedov, he's been putting on fun fights. And finally, like I said as well, like, he's kind of racking up finishes. Overall, I'd still give the power advantage to MVP. I just think he has a little bit more pop behind the shots. And again, even though he's getting a bit older, man, he does have the speed advantage here. It's not like Shara's moving in there quicker than the fucking blink of an eye. It is concerning, though, like, Shara, He is hittable, okay? But when it comes to just the striking exchanges between these two, I feel like it's going to be a really fun fight. I think this one's going to go the distance, though. I think for either guy to win, if it is MVP or for it is Shara, I think both of them are going to be a bit hard to kind of take out of there, especially with Shara. You know, he's an undefeated fighter, and with that comes a lot of hype and a lot of question marks to it because, like, you know, you're always kind of wondering who is going to be the guy to stop him, who's going to be the first guy to really take the O. And that's kind of part of the reason why I'm picking Shara as well. Like, not only do I think he's just going to get the better of MVP on the feet here, I think he's riding a bit more momentum. I think he's riding a lot more hype. I think he's just the age. Like I said, MVP moves quick, and therefore being 37. But I do think that the age is still a factor. Like the momentum and just the rise of Shara Bullet is a real thing. And I feel like he's gonna bring forward a lot more pressure and tenacity to this. Like whoever's gonna be able to control the pace, the flow, and the pressure of this fight, I feel like ultimately is gonna win because the striking is close between these two. And I will say that both these guys are solid volume strikers, but I feel like Shara kind of is better at putting the volume on guys and kind of overloading them in there. But MVP, man, just the way he's so precise, the way he has this kind of bizarre style, the way he's kind of hard to figure out, I could totally see that giving Shara a lot of problems, just in the build-up, but also for the fight itself. Like trying to figure out MVP in there, like, and dealing with shit on the spot, like dealing with the speed, dealing with the awkward style, dealing with just, I feel like, the powerful blows he's going to deliver. And this is middleweight MVP, which at first, when I was kind of looking at that, I don't really like his chances up there. I feel like MVP, you know, he's a big dude. He's taller than Shara. He's got a bigger reach advantage. Like MVP, solid frame, but I feel like welterweight is kind of more his fit. I was kind of surprised that he was down to take this one at middleweight, but he seemed like he wanted this fight. But regardless, you got to wonder if the power and the speed, if it's going to be able to translate as well up at middleweight. Now, obviously, you know, the lighter man skill, usually it does translate well up a weight class, but I don't know. I just feel like the frame of Shara is just a bit more well fit for middleweight, and obviously that's kind of his natural weight class he's kind of always been fighting at anyways. But and for MVP on the other end of things, it's kind of just, you know, it's a step up for him. This isn't usually his territory, not usually his weight class, so I feel like that's going to be a factor that's working against him in this one. But I feel like he'll be able to hold his own. Like I don't think it's going to be too much of a difference. And at this point, when you're coming into the UFC, hasn't had too much exposure yet. Pretty sure only 2 fights still. One against Kevin Holland, great performance, great win, and the other against Gary, you know, competitive close fight. Oh, so you're a wrestler now from Ian Gary, you know. I think he sensed the danger that MVP was going to be able to bring on the feet, or was already presenting on the feet in their fight. So Gary took it to the ground and tried to get in the clinch when he could. And I feel like that's another testament to how good and dangerous MVP striking is. He's so good at picking and choosing the right shots. Again, like just his movements, the way he flows in there. He's a hard dude to figure out, and he's going to come forward. But I think that Shara is going to be able to survive the storm. I think he's going to be able to put forward the pressure, be able to outvalue him in there, and be able to get ultimately the better of the striking exchanges. Can't really see these two shooting for the ground again unless it's just really not going their way for one of the two. But ultimately, MVP's dangerous. People forget, man. I do want to see him kind of rack up some wins. I want to see him active because, you know, we're not really going to get that many MVP fights in the UFC, which is unfortunate. It sucks that he kind of signed as late as he did, but Bellator and all that bullshit, I don't know. But I guess we got to appreciate him while he's here now. He's putting on fun fights. I like that the challenges that the UFC's giving him, and this was the right fight to make. But ultimately, I'm going to be going with Shara. For as dangerous as MVP is, I think that Shara's ultimately just going to take this one. I think by decision. Moving on up last to the main event that we got here. Israel Adesanya going against Nassourdine Imavov. So finally, man, we got Izzy back on the fight night, and I'm pretty sure I saw someone that this is the first non-title fight for Izzy in 6+ years. So this is kind of not unfamiliar territory, but going back to the roots a bit, you know, going on a big fight night and kind of facing an up and rising contender. And again, this isn't a title fight, and even if Izzy wins, it's not just going to bring him right back to a title shot. So it's going to be interesting to see if that really affects Adesanya. Like, I like the fact that he took this fight. I like the fact that he's taken on one of the division's hottest up-and-comers right now, and Imavov is dangerous to him in a few regards, but ultimately I think it is the one out of kind of like that top 5, 6, 7 where it is very winnable for Izzy here. And ultimately that's going to be my pick. I'm going to be going with Adesanya by decision. But my whole point, I guess, going back to like the fight night shit and this shit for Adesanya, it's going to be interesting to see how that affects him here. Like, this isn't an Alex Pereira. This isn't a Robert Whittaker. You know, it's not a Dricus du Plessis. Like, for opponent-wise, these guys aren't really talking too much shit back and forth to the other. So there's no big title motivations for Izzy, or it's not like he's facing some big rival, or it's not like the highest caliber of opponent he's ever fought. It's not like this guy's talking a bunch of shit to get him all fueled up. So, and again, going back to a fight night, and Izzy's kind of farther away from the title than he is closer to it, so it's going to be interesting to see how he takes that. But I like that he's taking this fight. I think it goes to show that he definitely is motivated for this. He definitely wants to go and rack up a few wins with the little time he's got left in the UFC. And I think that, again, like I said, out of anyone in that top 6 to 7 range, like, I think Imavov is probably the most winnable for him. I think that, like, you know, here's the fucking thing, you guys. Strickland already beat him. You know, I think Whitaker would beat him if they ran a trilogy, blah, blah, blah. Baraujo would present a lot of problems, shit like that. But ultimately, Nassourdine and Imavov, pretty well-rounded fighter. Like I said, one of the division's kind of hottest prospects right now. He's got a few good fight win streak going, a few asterisks next to those wins, most notably the Jared Cannonier one, who Cannonier was giving him a lot of problems. Arguably was winning that fight until the fucking, I almost said latest fuck stoppage, the earliest fuck stoppage, bro. But at the end of the day, it kind of put Imavov on the map. You know, he's kind of moving up ever since then, and coming off of the win over Brendan Allen, who Brendan Allen won the first round. I guess didn't really do anything with the takedown he got, though. And then after that, Imavov just started picking him apart on the feet, you know? And Imavov is a guy who defensively on the ground and offensively, you know, he's pretty solid. Obviously, he's going to want to keep most of his fights on the feet, but he knows how to mix it up well, you know? Knows how to keep the other opponent guessing. Knows just how to find that balance in between the striking and the grappling. But again, he wants to keep most of his fights on the feet. But against Adesanya, who's doing the goddamn same, except he's not going to want to take any damn fight to the ground. I know he's talking about, oh, I got something up my sleeve for the fucking, I can pull up with a submission here, but I don't want to just see like a Dustin Poirier versus a BSD, just fucking going for random submission attempts that probably aren't going to land just because you're kind of, oh, you know, facing someone down the rankings, let's go and have some fun with it. I don't think you're going to be able to do that against Imavov, who is clearly going to have the grappling advantage here. Imavov's going to want to mix in the takedowns when he can. He's going to want to try and incorporate the wrestling when he can. I think the first round or two, though, these guys are going to kind of feel each other out on the feet. Obviously, that's going to play towards Adesanya's favor. He's, you know, obviously a great kickboxer. I think a tiny bit overrated when it comes to striking alone, but Adesanya, man, second best middleweight of all time. Can't take anything away from the guy's legacy. Well, you can. A lot of people fucking do, but Adesanya is very skilled on the feet, and he's going to present problems for Imavov, you know? Very patient, technical, great at maintaining the distance, long, rangy. Like, Adesanya's a great striker, and if this fight really does just stay on the feet for the most of it, it's clearly going to play into his favor, in my opinion. I don't really see any big shots landing, or I can't really see a knockout coming from Adesanya here, even though, again, is the superior striker here. But I just think that Imavov, he does have a good chin. He's hard to take out of there. And Adesanya could crack him, but you just never know, because Izzy just kind of, you know, he has no problem with kind of coasting, especially if he senses he's up. He's technical, and he's not just going to put himself in harmful positions just for fucking whatever. You know what I mean? Imavov isn't like the hardest hitting motherfucker we've ever seen either, but like, I don't know. Those guys are probably around like the same level there, but the striking advantage, I'm going to give it to Adesanya, but obviously for the more well-rounded side of things and who's going to want to take this fight to the ground, it's going to be Imavov, and that's going to be his path to victory, you know, dictating where the fight goes, putting the pressure on the feet and outpointing him and avoiding his big shots so that he gets the better of the striking exchanges, and then mixing in a few takedowns here and there, you know, A, for the judges' scorecards, and B, it's clearly Adesanya's weak point in his game. He's going to want to use all the tools in the arsenal here, but the thing is, he cannot let Izzy play Izzy's game. Like, he can't let Izzy just control the fight, control the pace, control the flow, because that's where Izzy loves to fucking thrive. I know that Adesanya is 35 years old, but he's still in his prime. Like, he's still got a year or two left of it, because for middleweight, I feel like you can kind of get a bit over 35 and it's not going to matter as much for as like 170 and under, but I guess if age is a factor, I mean, Imavov's only like 29 or 30, something like that, so clearly is going to be the younger guy, and he's hungry right now. I feel like a bit more hungry to kind of get back at the title, because Adesanya, he's been there, done that. He's already the second greatest middleweight of all time. Like, yeah, a win over Imavov is going to be great, but it's not like he's going to get closer to beating or surpassing Silva or some shit. But Imavov on the other end, man, like, he's getting this big main event spot. Yeah, he's had a couple before, but like, he's hungry to get close to that title shot. If he beats Izzy, it's a good shot. He can kind of maybe, I don't know what's going on, because then you got Chimaev after DDP Strickland, but basically he would be like the number 1 or 2 or something like that contender up next for after Strickland, Chimaev, Duplessis, that whole trio, whatever, they're going to duke it out in the next few months. He's hungry and he wants that title shot, young, up and coming contender, and I don't think he's going to allow Izzy to play his game and control the pace of the fight and just control how everything goes down. So Imavov, he does have a really good chance of taking this one. Anyone that picks him, I could totally see him taking this, but overall, I'm going to trust in Izzy's skill set. Like, I think, again, there's more dangerous matchups for him in that top 5 range. I think Imavov is a very winnable fight for him. He's got to go out there and do it, though, okay? He can't perform very timid and kind of just like laid back, just kind of coaching. Like, he has to get the fuck after it. He has to put forward the pressure, you know, land nice to the body, you know, hopefully he can kind of throw a bit more leg kicks. We didn't really get to see that too much against DDP. Obviously, it's a big part of Adesanya's game, but I think he was kind of injured down there going, like, there was some reason he wasn't throwing too many leg kicks for the DDP fight, but pretty sure for this one, he'll kind of be a bit more healthy. Hopefully, at least. I don't fucking know. It's all hypothetical with this injury bullshit still. But still, man, like, Izzy performed great against DDP. took those first couple of rounds, but he was landing nice to the body against DDP, and he was putting forward like a different kind of pressure. You know, it could have just been because that's DDP's whole style. He's constantly looking for the finish and going forward. Maybe it was Adesanya's way to counteract that. If it did, it was working out pretty well to the 4th round, but Adesanya needs to go out there, man, and he needs to be aggressive. He can't just coast like the Cannonier fight or the Strickland fight, you know, especially if he's down, man. Like, he's got to go out there and move the fuck forward. Don't let Imavov get comfortable in there. Don't let him dictate, you know, just being so comfortable like, oh, I'm going to take this guy down whenever the fuck I want. Izzy's got to shut that shit down if he really wants to win this one. Try and get a little knockout in there, you know what I mean? Let's see a finish from Izzy. Unlikely, like, I think he's going to win, but I think it's going to be by decision, but it'd be nice to see, you know what I mean? Maybe we can get a few more arrows this time, some fucking bullshit, I don't know, dude. But basically, both these guys' path to victory, you know, Adesanya, keep it on the feet, move forward, be aggressive, put forward the pressure, outpoint the dude, and when it comes to the takedowns and defensive grappling, like, stuff that shit and try and hold your own. And for Imavov, mix it up, incorporate the wrestling, but also just completely try to get the better Adesanya in the feet. Don't let him play his fight. Overall, I'm going to be going with Adesanya by decision, but can totally see Imavov taking this one. So basically, that's going to be it for all my picks for UFC Saudi Arabia. Again, going to probably be a really fun card, hopefully at least. But kind of just finishing up this, I want to do the blanks of the card, little segment we got going on here. So starting off with the underdog of the card. Which underdog I think has the best shot at taking it? I'm going to be going with Vinicius Oliveira. Again, I could totally see a Nurmagomedov win, especially, you know, it's on home turf, so those judges, especially if it goes a distance, going to be a little more inclined to give it to him. But I can see over Oliveira, like I was saying earlier, putting on big pressure, just kind of outpointing him, landing the better shots. He's a very dynamic, wild striker in there, and if he's able to efficiently keep the fight on the feet and hold his own on the ground defensively, I could totally see him taking this one, even with kind of the home turf advantage for Nurmagomedov. So I think underdog of the card, I'm going to be going with Vinicius Oliveira. So moving on to the locks of the card here, I'm going to be putting down Shamil Gaziev and Terrance McKinney. Now, dude, these guys are pretty solid favorites, man, and by all means, they should win their fights. But if they lose, dude, Gaziev's cooked. He's fucked. And if McKinney loses, he's just fucking gone from the promotion at this point. So I do think, though, that the odds are going to be in their favor, betting-wise or not. I just feel like they got all the clear advantage to kind of win over their respective opponents. Locks of the card, I'm going to be going with Gaziev and McKinney. Moving on to the wild card of the card, kind of, you know, can kind of see it coming out of left turn, or someone that's being kind of very overlooked, or maybe they're just an underdog and it'd be kind of wild to just see them win, but it is possible they could shake up the card. I'm going to be going with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I can see him getting it done, man. I'm going to be rooting for Biggie Boy on this one. Yes, because I am money on him, but also just I'm rooting for the underdog here. And I really can see him getting it done. I'm not confident enough to put him as like the underdog of the card because I could, again, like I was saying earlier, I could totally see Pavlovich getting a knockout win here. But don't be surprised, man. I can see Rozenstruik taking it. So wild card of the card, I'm going to be going with Rozenstruik. And overall, the card rating, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. It's a good card. It's lacking depth in the prelims, especially the earlier on ones, but the main card is solid. It's a really intriguing main event and co-main event, and there's just fun fights kind of scattered throughout. So I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. And again, the fact that it's literally better than the pay-per-view of the month, bro. The pay-per-view of the month, this shit's better than it. So it is what it is. It is what it is, brother. We'll find out Saturday night. So overall, thank you guys so very much for watching. Thanks so much for making the start on the video, giving me y'all's time. I really, really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good time watching the fights this weekend. Let me know your picks in the comments below. Let me know what you think of my shitty-ass picks. Let me know your opinions. We're just here to talk MMA, so I'd love to hear it. Thank you guys so very much for watching. All the Smoke MMA here. Appreciate y'all a lot, and I will see you all next time. Have fun this weekend watching the fights, y'all.